Good morning, everyone. Now, today's class is on vesiculobullous lesion, that is part 2. Now, the learning objectives of this class includes some of the lesions which I will be discussing. To start with, from erythema multiforme, where you will be able to learn the etiology, pathogenesis, clinical manifestations, oral manifestations, differential diagnosis, then the management of the lesion. Then you will be able to interpret different lesions based on the knowledge of pathogenesis, clinical oral presentations, along with its differentiating features. Now, after this, again, you will be able to group all the lesions into acute and chronic multiple lesions, recurring oral lesions, and the single ulcers. Then a lesser outline includes discussion on erythema multiforme, recurrent aphthous stomatitis, and Behçet syndrome, and the single ulcers like histoplasmosis, blastomycosis, and mucormycosis. These are the resources from which I will be teaching you all these lesions or the entities, that is from vesiculobullous lesion part 2. Now, coming to the very first entity, that is erythema multiforme. Now, to define, it is an acute inflammatory disease of the skin and mucous membrane that causes a variety of skin lesions, hence the name multiforme. It means that it has a variety of presentation on the skin as well as in the oral cavity. Some of the lesions might manifest in the form of macules or papules, or some lesions they start immediately, will have an abrupt and an acute onset, where the vesicles might rupture to form larger lesions. So a variety of manifestations are there for this entity, hence the name it is called as multiforme. Now, coming to the etiology of this disorder, now the most acceptable pathogenesis is related to the immune mediated disease causing deposition of the immune complexes in the superficial microvasculature of the skin and mucous membrane. Now, this is very important. Whenever there is an abnormal immune complexes present in the body, it is getting deposited in the superficial microvasculature of the skin and mucous membrane. That is why you have lot of lesions in the skin and in the oral mucous membrane. Now, some of the drugs like trimethoprim sulfonamides, nitrofurantoin, phenylbutazone, oral contraceptives, and some of the organisms like Mycoplasma pneumoniae, HSV, and history of vaccination, radiation therapy, Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, and infectious mononucleosis. So these are all the predisposing factors for the lesions to occur. So whenever you take a history from these patients, they tell that immediately after taking this drug, I have got these manifestations on my skin and in the oral mucosa. So that is the main triggering a key point from the history to diagnose erythema multiforme. Now, there are three types of erythema multiforme: a milder self-limiting form, which is also referred to as erythema multiforme simplex; a severe life-threatening form, which is referred to as Stevens-Johnson syndrome; and toxic epidermal necrolysis. So, this is all about erythema multiforme, the definition, etiology, and different types of erythema multiforme. So, a mild self-limiting form, that is erythema multiforme simplex, and a severe life-threatening form, that is complex erythema multiforme, where you have two entities under this, that is one is Stevens-Johnson syndrome, the other is toxic epidermal necrolysis. Now, coming to the clinical features of this particular condition. Now, when you compare, the children and young adults are affected, males as compared to females are more involved. It has an acute and an explosive onset. Patients may be asymptomatic, and in less than 24 hours there will be extensive oral lesions appearing. Patient might have fever and malaise along with these lesions, and the common sites are the hands, feet, extensor surface of elbows and knees. It is also characterized by appearance of macules, papules, and vesicles. Now, the pathognomic lesion for this condition is referred to as the bullseye lesion, a target iris lesion. Now, how this lesion is described is by this central pale appearance of the mucosa with surrounding rings of erythema and edema. So, the target or the iris lesions are described as central pale clearing area surrounded by rings of or bands of erythema and edema. Now, the other severe condition of erythema multiforme, that is Stevens-Johnson syndrome, which is characterized as syndrome because it is involving 4 areas of the body, that is generalized vesicles with this formation of lesions involving on the skin, mouth, eyes and genitals. When these 4 areas of the body are involved, it is referred to as the Stevens-Johnson syndrome. Through these pictures, you can just note the severity of the lesion. The third entity is the toxic epidermal necrolysis, which is also referred to as Lyle's disease. Now, it is nothing but secondary to a drug reaction and results in sloughing of the skin and mucous membrane in large sheets. Now, in this condition, it is said that the morbidity is high because of the secondary infections, fluid and electrolyte imbalance, involvement of the liver, lung and the kidney. Now, these kind of cases are managed in the burn centers where the toxic necrotic skin is removed under general anesthesia, and there might be healing taking place under the sheets of porcine xenografts. Now, the oral manifestations, in 45% of the cases, oral manifestations occur concurrent with the skin lesions. Lip is the most common site involved in erythema multiforme, followed by the buccal mucosa, palate, tongue and the face. Now, oral lesions usually start as vesiculobullous lesions on an erythematous base, break rapidly to form various excoriations or larger ulcers. Then the lesions are usually large, deep and often bleed. Patient cannot eat and swallow, and blood-thin saliva usually drools from these lesions. In full-blown cases, the lips are extensively involved. Larger portion of the oral mucosa is denuded of epithelium, sloughing of the mucosa and diffuse redness with bright red raw surface, hemorrhagic crusting that might occur in 2 to 3 days, and healing occurs in a span of 2 weeks. So this is how these lesions are described on the lip and on the buccal mucosa. Then the clinical diagnosis, whenever you diagnose this condition, it is mostly based on the clinical appearance of the lesions, and clinical diagnosis is more reliable where you have a history of a drug or a previous viral infection from a patient. And when you observe the patient clinically, you find the hemorrhagic crusting of the lips as a pathognomic feature in oral manifestation with involvement of the lower lip, and on the skin when you observe, you have a target or the bullseye lesion. The lab diagnosis is very much inconclusive. If at all you are taking a biopsy, you will find all these features. Whenever you do the H&E staining, you find all these features in the slide. Now, coming to the differential diagnosis for this particular entity, the first preferential differential diagnosis is the primary HSV, where the pathognomic feature, now whenever you give the differential diagnosis, you need to eliminate each condition by their pathognomic features. Now when you come to the primary HSV, you have herpetic gingivostomatitis, the pathognomic feature. Then next is the allergic contact stomatitis, where a previous history of allergy, or the patient will directly give you an history that after use of these dental medicaments or some application of the drugs, the lesion started. So a history of allergy is always there in patients with allergic contact stomatitis. The next you have pemphigus, where the pathognomic feature in pemphigus is the presence of Nikolsky's sign, and it is a very severe condition where there will be lot of involvement of the epithelium, and the disease usually spreads very fast, and pathognomic feature is Nikolsky's sign. Erosive lichen planus, the pathognomic feature in erosive lichen planus is the appearance of Wickham's striae, and a typical appearance of the lesion, which is in contrast to your erythema multiforme, where you have the bloody crusting, encrustations on the lip. Then you have SLE is also one of the differential diagnosis and some of the allergic reactions. The treatment for this particular condition, in milder cases, you need to give the supportive measures, removal of cause, topical anesthetic mouthwashes, soft or liquid diet, intravenous rehydration, moderate to severe short course of systemic steroids, that is 30 mg of prednisolone per day or methylprednisolone. Now we have one more a type of erythema multiforme which can be associated with HSV infection. So in such cases, you need to analyze it very carefully and put the patient even on antiviral drugs, that is acyclovir. Then in cases of toxic epidermal necrolysis, these patients are managed in burn centers where administration of pooled human immunoglobulin is given, which causes blockage of the fast FAS ligand, which induce the endothelial cell apoptosis. So this is all about the treatment of erythema multiforme. Now a quick revision of the differences in HSV and erythema multiforme. HSV is a viral infection, and erythema multiforme, as I told you, that is an immune mediated condition. Lesions in HSV are small, round, shallow and symmetric, whereas the lesions in case of erythema multiforme are large, irregular, deeper and often bleed. Gingival involvement is very much common in HSV, and whereas lip involvement is common in case of erythema multiforme. The pathognomic feature in HSV is the appearance of primary herpetic gingivostomatitis, whereas the target or iris lesions are very much pathognomic for erythema multiforme. Then in HSV, steroids are contraindicated in HSV, whereas steroids are the mainstay of treatment for erythema multiforme. पानी बंद करो, अप्पू को भी फोन कर लो. The next entity is contact allergic stomatitis. Now this results from delayed hypersensitivity reaction. Then whenever there is a contact with dental materials and oral hygiene products and food, like cinnamon, peppermint, chewing gum, toothpaste, mouthwashes and dental floss, and even the dental materials like your mercury, gold, a monomer in the acrylic, nickel in an ortho wire, all this might cause the because of the allergy to these dental medicaments and certain dental products, there will be stomatitis because of the use of this products. Now what happens here is reactions whenever the patients use these drugs, there will be reactions occurring at the local site, burning sensation or soreness accompanied by erythema. Occasionally there will be formation of vesicles and ulcers. Then there will be plasma cell gingivitis causing generalized erythema edema of the attached gingiva accompanied by cheilitis and glossitis. The investigations in these conditions includes use of patch test, where there will be suspected allergens in a small aluminium disc which are placed on hairless portion of the skin. These discs remain in place for 48 hours, and a positive response is usually developed whenever the at the site where there will be inflammation. This is referred to as the patch test. A suspected allergen is usually placed on a non-hairy skin and kept in contact for a period of 24 to 48 hours. If the localized erythema develops at that particular site, then it is referred to as the positive patch test. Now, how do you treat these cases are by removal of the allergen, and severe cases are usually treated by application of topical corticosteroids. Now you have another condition which is called as lesions which are manifesting because of the condition like oral ulcers, which are secondary to cancer chemotherapy. Now here in these cases multiple ulcers usually develop. Multiple ulcers in these conditions usually develop because of certain drugs, that is patients who are on cancer chemotherapy. These drugs usually have a direct effect on the oral mucous membrane to cause the ulcers, and some of the drugs which cause an indirect effect. Now the direct effect is because of the effect on replication and growth of oral epithelium, by interfering with the nucleic acid and protein synthesis, leading to thinning and ulceration of the oral mucosa. Indirect effect is by depression of the bone marrow and immune response, leading to the bacterial, viral and the fungal infections. The next entity is acute necrotizing ulcerative gingivitis. Now it is a very familiar condition which is defined as an endogenous oral infection which is characterized by necrosis of the gingiva. It is also referred to as trench mouth. It is caused by the organisms like fusiform bacillus and spirochetes. The major factors which are involved in ANAG includes poor oral hygiene with pre-existing marginal gingivitis, smoking and emotional stress. Now, there are three forms of the periodontal diseases in patients of ANAG, usually in an immunocompromised individuals like AIDS. You find linear gingival erythema, necrotizing ulcerative gingivitis, necrotizing ulcerative periodontitis. Now, the clinical features of this particular condition includes pain, tenderness, profuse salivation, metallic taste, spontaneous bleeding from the gingival tissues, loss of taste sensation, diminished pleasure from smoking, slightly extruded teeth sensitive to pressure with the OD sensation, blunting of the interdental papillae, necrotic punched out oral ulcerations, and ulcerations involves the alveolar process causing sequestration of the teeth and the bone. Now this is a condition which requires treatment as local debridement with irrigation and periodontal curettage. Then a little extension of these treatment includes root planing, removal of overhanging margins of the restoration and other predisposing factors. Antibiotics where extensive gingival involvement is present like penicillin and metronidazole are the drugs of choice, and H2O2 mouth rinse and 1.5 to 2% of chlorhexidine mouth rinses is also very much helpful in these patients. Then the other entity is now coming to the disorders. Now all this section of patients who manifest with acute oral ulcerations is over, where we discussed HSV lesion, then we discussed Coxsackie virus infection, then we discussed varicella zoster virus infection, then erythema multiforme, allergic contact stomatitis, and the ANAC. So these all entities were under the classification of acute multiple lesions. Now, second group of disorders according to Burkitt's classification includes patients who manifest with recurrent aphthous stomatitis. In that very first entity, you have recurrent aphthous stomatitis. Now, it is defined as a common disease characterized by development of painful, recurrent, solitary, or the multiple ulcerations of the oral mucosa with no other signs of the disease. The definition itself is explaining the diagnosis of this condition. The patients manifest either solitary or multiple ulcerations with no other sign of the disease, and only there is an oral involvement there. That is involvement of the oral mucosa. Now, coming to the etiology of this particular condition, now it is also an immune mediated disease where there will be mucosal destruction because of the T cell mediated immunological reaction because of IgG and IgM binding of epithelial cells of spinous layers of oral mucosa. Then autoimmune disorder, hypersensitivity to oral organisms like Streptococcus sanguis, lymphocytotoxicity, and defects in the T cell subpopulation. Then there will also be genetic predisposition. You will see that it usually runs in the families, and patients whose parents are suffering from these multiple oral ulcerations, there will be a tendency because of the presence of specific HLA antigen in recurrent aphthous stomatitis patients that causes an increased susceptibility to be seen in children among the RAS positive parents. Then the microbial organisms like alpha hemolytic streptococci then are also involved in the implication of this particular disorder. Then patients will have certain predisposing varicella zoster and cytomegalovirus virus infection too. Now, the systemic disorders factors are also associated with this particular condition, that patients may have cyclic neutropenia and inflammatory bowel disease, especially a Magic syndrome, that is mouth and genital ulcers with inflamed cartilage, and Sweet syndrome. So these are the two syndromes that are associated with recurrent aphthous stomatitis patients. Now, another predisposing or the etiological factor implicated in RAS includes deficiency of iron, folate, and vitamin B12. Then the precipitating factors includes trauma, which include self-inflicted bites, surgical procedures, toothbrushing. Then dental trauma can cause the abscess ulceration. Then certain endocrinal conditions is also way it causes the endocrinal conditions. In certain endocrinal conditions also you see the precipitation of these kind of ulcers, that is during menstruation and post ovulation period, and remission during pregnancy. Stress and anxiety also increases the precipitation of these ulcers. For example, children during exams, there will be tendency of more RAS occurring in these individuals. Now, certain studies also have proven that cessation of the smoking might also increases the frequency and severity of the condition. Allergic factors, that is, patients may have a history of asthma, hay fever, food and drug allergy. Coming to the classification of this disorder, it is classified as minor ulcers, major ulcers, which is also referred to as the Sertans disease, and it is also referred to as PMNR, that is periadenitis mucosa necrotica recurrence. Sometimes PMNR is asked as a short essay, so you need not get confused. It is nothing but one of the major form of recurrent aphthous stomatitis. Then third entity is herpetiform ulcers, and fourth is aphthous ulcers associated with Behçet's syndrome. Now, coming to the clinical manifestations, it usually manifests during second to third decade of life, and the oral cavity, the sites involved are the buccal length labial mucosa, tongue, soft palate, pharynx, and gingiva. Now, it begins with prodromal burning of the oral mucosa with for a period of 28 to 48 hours. The ulcers gradually develop over next 70 to 48 to 72 hours. The lesions are usually typically painful, interferes with eating, swallowing, and speech. Ulcers may be single or multiple, surrounded by areas of erythema. The minor ulcers are usually 0.5 centimeters in diameter and heals without scarring in 10 to 14 days. The major ulcers are usually 1 to 5 centimeters, heals very slowly, leaves scarring, causing reduced mobility of the tissues wherever it is involved, like uvula, tongue, causing destructions of portions of the oral mucosa. Herpetiform ulcers are nothing but the small pinhead sized ulcers that gradually enlarges and coalesce. One of the typical characteristic of this particular ulcers are they are surrounded by an erythematous halo, whether it is a single or a multiple lesion. These are the clinical presentations of the disorder, where you can see the appearance of, in a first picture, a single ulcer with an erythematous halo. Then the second entity is a large ulcer which is more than 1 centimeter in diameter, that is a major aphthous ulcer. And third one, you can see multiple pinpoint head sized lesions with lots of erythema there, that is the HSV associated recurrent aphthous stomatitis. The differential diagnosis for this particular entity can be pemphigus, benign mucous membrane pemphigoid, cyclic neutropenia, erythema multiforme, HSV, SLE, and erosive lichen planus. Now, in order of first preferential differential diagnosis, it is given where you need to eliminate each condition with their pathognomic features. Now, coming to the management of this disorder, you have milder cases are usually treated by topical application of Orabase, and the next line of treatment includes the use of topical corticosteroids like triamcinolone acetonide and betamethasone 0 to 0.05% syrup, or in the dexamethasone, fluocinolone. All these are topical steroid preparations. Then one of the predisposing etiological factor we have gone through is the presence of certain organisms there. So because of that, you need to use in some of the individuals tetracycline mouth rinse, that is 250 milligram per ml 4 times daily for 5 to 7 days. Then nutritional supplements in the form of vitamin B12, ferritin, folate, and iron will also help the patients. Then chlorhexidine mouthwash, that is an antibacterial mouthwash, can also be used in this individuals. Severe cases, you need to treat them by injection of corticosteroids. Then topical preparations like beclomethasone spray, 0.05% of clobestrol cream, fluocinolone gel, and beclomethasone spray. In certain systemic steroids like prednisolone, betamethasone syrup can also be used. Then prednisolone, whenever you are giving in a oral dose, 40 to 60 milligram per day can be given. But this is usually required in severe cases, or maybe in cases where the lesions are not healing, and in cases of major recurrent aphthous stomatitis. Then the other line of treatment includes laser ablations with precise excision of the lesions that will fasten the healing in these individuals. The other medications includes use of dapsone, thalidomide, amlexinox, azilistine hydrochloride, colchicine, cyclosporin, and prostaglandin E2, interferon alpha, and levimizole. So these are the other medications. Because of their effect on the immune modulation of the system, they can be used in very recalcitrant and chronic cases of major aphthous stomatitis. Now coming to the next entity, in patients who manifest with recurring ulcers, you have the Behçet's disease, or it is also called as the Behçet syndrome. How is this described as? It is a triad of symptoms causing recurring oral ulcers, genital ulcers, eye lesions, and involvement of the skin. So if you find all these areas of the body getting involved with ulcers, it is referred to as a Behçet syndrome. Now here the etiology is the deposition of immune complexes in the blood vessels, major blood vessels, that is a small and medium sized blood vessels, leading to vasculitis by immunocompetent T lymphocytes and plasma cells. Now in contrast to erythema multiforme, where you could see the deposition of such kind of immune complexes in the superficial microvasculature of the skin and mucous membrane, here it is in the small and medium sized blood vessels causing vasculitis by this deposition of immunocompetent T cells and plasma cells. Coming to the clinical manifestations of this condition, now oral mucosa or pharyngeal mucosa is involved, causing the mild recurring oral ulcers to larger deeper scarring lesions. So the oral lesions can be in the form of milder ulcers to larger ulcers that might cause scarring when the lesions are healing. Genital lesions, then the eye lesions are in the form of conjunctivitis, keratitis, uveitis, vascular occlusion, and optic atrophy. Then the skin lesions can be in the form of large pustular lesions. Then the patient might suffer with the involvement of other areas of the body like arthritis involving the knees and ankles. Then I told you a syndrome associated with this condition, that is mouth and genital ulcers with inflamed cartilage, that is a Myers syndrome. Then there can be involvement of the CNS, which includes brainstem syndrome and neurologic degeneration. Then thrombophlebitis, venous thrombosis, intestinal ulceration, renal and the pulmonary disease can also be present. Involvement of the larger blood vessels is life-threatening because of arterial occlusion and aneurysm. Now, how is the diagnosis for this particular condition? Is by means of a positive pathology test. That is an inflammatory reaction, formation of a pustule within 24 hours of a needle puncture, scratch or a saline injection. So whenever you do a scratch on the skin surface because of needle puncture or a saline injection, there will be formation of a new pustule there. Now there is also a one set diagnostic criteria for Behçet syndrome, that the patient should have recurring oral ulcerations occurring at least 3 times in a span of 1 year, plus 2 of any of these following manifestations. That is recurrent genital ulcerations, then eye lesions, then you have the skin lesions like erythema nodosum, pseudofolliculitis, and a positive pathology test. Now coming to the management of this particular condition, because there is severity of the disease with involvement of larger areas of the body, so patients are usually put on immunomodulatory drugs like azathioprine with prednisolone, pentoxifylline, cyclosporin or colchicine in combination with corticosteroids or colchicine and thalidomide. These are all the teratogenic drugs which are being used. So you need to carefully monitor the systemic condition of the patient with investigations before you are subjecting the patient to these kind of drugs. Then topical or intralesional steroids can be given, and plasmapheresis is also one of the treatment modality in Behcet syndrome. Now, the other condition among the patients with recurring oral ulcers is the recurrent herpes simplex virus infection. It is also called as RIH or recurrent herpes labialis. Now, it occurs in patients with a previous history of herpes simplex virus infection. In healthy individuals, infection is usually confined to a localized portion of the skin or the mucous membrane. Now, it is not, you should understand this, that recurrent herpes simplex infection is not a reinfection but the reactivation of virus that remains in the ganglions or in the nerve roots. Now, one of the typical characteristic feature of herpes group of viruses is that whenever there is a primary infection in a patient, so these viruses, they remains latent within the nerves and the ganglions. So ganglions, and whenever there is a reactivation by certain predisposing factors or disturbance in the immune mechanism of an individual, these lesions, they get precipitated and it is referred to as a recurrent herpes simplex virus infection. So always the secondary infection is not a reinfection, it's not due to reinfection, but it is because of the reactivation of the virus that remains latent. So latency is one of the feature of herpes group of viruses. Now, what happens is how this reactivation is occurring, because when the patient has got a low immune system, that is low serum IgA, decreased cell mediated immunity, decreased salivary anti-herpes activity, and depression of your antibody dependent cell mediated cytotoxicity and interleukin 2. Now, maybe activated this reactivation can also be by trauma to the lips, fever, sunburn, immunosuppression and menstruation. Then patients with T lymphocyte deficiencies due to AIDS, transplants or cancer chemotherapy develop larger chronic lesions and disseminated HSV. Coming to the clinical manifestations, they usually appear in the form of cold sore or fever blisters precipitated by menstruation, ultraviolet radiation and emotional stress, preceded by a prodromal period of tingling and burning sensation, causing edema at the site of the lesion, followed by formation of the clusters of vesicles. These vesicles initially will be of 1 to 3 mm in diameter. Now, these vesicles may coalesce to form clusters. These clusters could be around 1 to 2 centimeter. Now, whenever such kind of lesions are present, definitely the patient will have a lot of discomfort and disfigurement. And recurrent intraoral herpes lesions, the clusters of vesicles or ulcers which are 1 to 2 mm in diameter, they appear on heavily keratinized oral mucosa of the gingiva, palate and alveolar ridges. Now, the diagnosis, because it is a viral infection, is by cytology. Then you have a viral culture which will give you the difference in which species of virus it is, that is, it is a varicella zoster or it is a herpes simplex virus. Now, the management of this particular condition is by symptoms. Then whenever you feel that it is associated with the the condition is usually treated with antiviral drugs, that is acyclovir 400 mg twice daily and valacyclovir 250 mg twice daily and famciclovir also 250 mg twice daily. Now, these are all the antiviral drugs which have even got their topical formulations in the form of acyclovir and famciclovir. So, you need to assess these patients depending on the severity of the condition. Very small ulcers and local areas, you can put the patient on topical formulations. Where the severity of the disease is more, with larger areas of involvement of the oral mucosa, you need to put the patient on even the systemic dosage of drugs, and commonly used drug is 400 mg of acyclovir twice daily. So, this was all about vesiculobullous lesions part 2. The next part, that is the part 3, we will be taking in the next session. Thank you.